offensively, this game is emblematic of the NFL in 2024, where explosive plays are king, and you can overcome inefficiency and big mistakes by just making big plays. The Commanders' offensive staff was all over some of Philly's tendencies in this game, and they used that knowledge to score points and keep drives alive in the biggest of spots. Philly played dime for like 3 snaps in this game, and I'm pretty sure 2 of the big plays came on when Philly was playing dime. A dime, a.k.a. 6 defensive backs. So in Philly's case, the way they run it was with 4 corners and 2 safeties. And it seemed like they wanted to play it, not against a particular personnel grouping for Washington, but they liked certain calls that they wanted dime on the field for like 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, kind of 3rd and medium type of range. So the Commanders early in this game get a 3rd and 5. The Eagles run their dime package out there, and the Commanders just run the ball on that light personnel for a first down. Like, okay, fine. You want to play 6 defensive backs and have nobody in the middle of the field? We'll run a halfback dive or inside zone for 5 yards on a 3rd and 5 and or a 3rd and 4 and get a first down. So that is one situation where, based off down and distance, I think Philly had a bit of a tendency, and Washington found a way to take advantage of it. But the even bigger one, the more important one, is in the red zone. I mean, they manipulated the hell out of some dudes down in the red zone. And the thing I really like about Kliff in the red zone in this game particularly is a lot of teams in the red zone would just like run their stuff, their red zone stuff. And their red zone stuff is, hey, let's give the quarterback multiple options. He's going to drop back, and we're going to run a couple route concepts, and we're going to hope that somebody wins. And we like this against quarters, or we like this against whatever, but if teams play it well, then it's not the hardest to cover. You wind up almost begging for a second action where it's covered, now my quarterback is running around, and somebody shakes loose. It becomes scramble drill. Kliff, the way he called the red zone stuff in this game, was 100% in on let's put one defender in hell, or let's put one part of the field in super conflict and know that we're going to wind up with a 3-on-2 or a 2-on-1, and we're going to wind up with a dude popping open. It makes it simple for Jaden, and if all of a sudden they do cover it right, they pass the thing off, or they trick us into coverage, like, okay, then Jaden will have to run around and make something happen. But their first touchdown comes on like a fake, or the first touchdown to Crowder comes on like a fake screen. They do a great job getting OZ isolated on the one late. They put a really intricate detail on the game winner where it's a route concept that's very, very common, but because they flip the tight end and the receiver, so Crowder is inside of Ertz. Typically the tight end is the guy closest to the offensive line. Instead, they put him in kind of the slot and Crowder next to him inside, and that causes Zach Bond, a linebacker, to be on Jamison Crowder. That's a good advantage for Washington. Bang, bang, touchdown, game over. So the ability to understand what Philadelphia was doing defensively, how they wanted to manipulate it, how they wanted to test it, even that go ball to Terry, like to get that on Kenyon Mitchell, to have that much space, you got to know what you're getting. And they did. They were all over it. And that is just part of what I want to do in terms of heaping praise on Kliff Kingsbury.
Number 5.
Kliff in general just showed something. I've talked about it a ton this year. Kliff is so competitive. He just refuses to be like, well, this is the game plan. I hope it works eventually. He will find something eventually. And boy, did he. Because this running game was bad. Jalen Carter was a monster. You had Bond is like blowing things up left and right. They got dudes running all over the place. DeJean, like, even when they got some good runs, I mean, the halfback direct snap thing was a good, solid carry until DeJean punches it out of B-Rob's hands. Obviously, B-Rob at that point is kind of fighting his confidence. First 2 fumbles he's lost all year, both come in the same game. And so what does Kliff do? He dives all the way back into his air raid bag. The Commanders have barely run 10 personnel this year, a.k.a. 4 wide receivers, no tight ends, and 1 running back. They ran it like 3 or 4 times in this game, including the one play where they just pushed the receivers all the way out to the sideline. So let's just create as much space in the middle of the field as possible, which guys do all the time in college offenses. And then let's run the quarterback. And that wasn't a zone read. That was a quarterback power. They pulled 2 offensive linemen out in front of Jaden and just said, our best player is the only dude who seems to be able to run it right now, so we're just going to create as much space as possible, get him with 2 big hog mollies out in front, and run. And that was one of their better run plays of the game in terms of design. There's a 3rd and 7 in the first half where it looks like they run a quarterback draw. It's not quarterback draw. It's quarterback trap. So they let Jalen Carter come up the field and crisscross the guards. So Nick Allegretti gets a running start into Jalen Carter. Jaden sneaks right inside that block. There's nobody in the middle of the field because by doing that, Tyler Biotish, the center, also gets a free release up to the second level. He doesn't even bother with who's in front of him, whereas quarterback draw, you kind of fake the pass set, whatever. No, he's able to get to the second level. You trap Carter, and you let Jaden do the work. And they get a first down out of that. So the creativity, again, on display from Kliff Kingsbury. Just some really, really good stuff that what came through in big situations.
Number 6.
In general, offensively, this game is emblematic of the NFL in 2024, where explosive plays are king, and you can overcome inefficiency and big mistakes by just making big plays. And that's, by the way, how the Eagles normally play. They are not a pretty offense. They will run the ball for 1 yard all the time with Saquon. They will have Jalen Hurts stand back there and take a bunch of sacks. He will throw the ball to the wrong guy, miss a big opportunity. But then he makes it. And then Saquon busts a 60-yarder. And then they go for it on 3rd down and 4th down with the tush push, and they extend drives. And that is how the Eagles are one of the best teams in football. And the Eagles couldn't do that yesterday because Kenny Pickett was in the game, not Jalen Hurts, while the Commanders, 4th downs, conversions, were good, generally speaking, on 3rd down, converted in the red zone, and they hit the big explosive to Diami out of their own end zone. They have the big explosive to Terry for the touchdown. They get the gift of an explosive when Philly's got too many guys on the field and runs a guy off. They're in man-to-man coverage, and nobody picks up Olamide Zaccheaus, and so Zaccheaus is wide open and then shows a great finish to get into the end zone. Big plays rule all in the modern NFL. You can turn the ball over. You can play like crap down in, down out. And that's not how I would recommend it. I would not describe what the Commanders did yesterday as winning football, but they overcame it with big plays. And being aggressive in that way should inform how Washington plays the rest of the season.
Number 7.
Defensively, it's hard to overstate how important the Hurts injury was because the Eagles absolutely cooked early, thanks in part to Jalen Hurts' scrambling ability. And even though Saquon is Saquon and you're scared of him, you still play against the Eagles with a light box. And you say, hey, if you guys want to run it, go ahead. That's better than big explosive passing plays to A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. And that strategy gets really stressed when you're already light trying to cover the best offensive line in football in Saquon Barkley while you're worried about Jalen Hurts pulling the ball and running the other way. And once you lose that threat, it becomes a lot easier to go hard at your assignments. And you're not that scared of the play action pass in the boot. You're not that scared of not having enough guys in coverage because you just play with a heavier box and say, Kenny Pickett, go ahead, beat us. And that's what they did. The Commanders played 0 snaps with a heavy box in the first half. They played 35% in the second half. Talk about finding a way. Schematically, not to mention the execution, hell of a job by the Commanders defense to stop the bleeding and turn it around, even if it took a quarterback change. You play the game that's in front of you. They did.
Number 8.
Now, there was a interesting spot defensively, which was Marshon Lattimore, who had a very different day than his Commanders debut and his Commanders home debut. Of course, in his debut, the Saints didn't target him once. He was targeted against the Eagles as A.J. Brown picked up 70-plus yards in PI penalties. Definitely worth saying. I didn't love the calls on most of them. I think there was one that I was like, yeah. There's one that should have been like a mutual PI because Brown had his fingers inside of Lattimore's chest plate and is yanking him to the ground as Marshon's grabbing A.J. Brown's arm. And then the last one I thought was just a plain soft call. And I didn't think there was a lot of contact. He tripped. They got their feet tangled at the very end after the ball was completely out of play. And the referee's like, yeah, we're throwing it. I was like, what are we doing? But Lattimore never stopped competing. He never stopped talking smack. He never stopped playing hard. He never stops, not just in the game, but in individual plays where Brown beats him on a slant and he's able to rake the ball out late, or other plays where he's able to get the ball out late. And that type of competitiveness, that type of juice wears off on your teammates, and you could feel his energy in that game yesterday. Even if at times it was chaotic, even if at times the play was not good, you see the dog that is Marshon Lattimore.
Number 9.
Speaking of dogs, oh my God. Frankie Luvu was a maniac yesterday. And obviously he turns the game around with that interception where he baits Kenny Pickett into it and does a great job. You know, I was giving Frankie a hard time, like in a very joking manner last week because he had a ball hit him in the face mask, and it's like, hey, dude, you got to catch it. And he knows that. As Joe Witt's been on them all week long about, hey, we got to convert our turnovers. And Frankie did. Got that pick, had some pressures. And I think the biggest thing is the key to their defense is the unpredictability of Frankie Luvu. The fact that he could be on the field doing anything at any time. They rushed the ball 34 times yesterday, did Philly, and then they dropped back 40 times. In those 40 dropbacks, Luvu was in coverage 19 times and a pass rusher 21. Hey, our offensive game plan, we got to make sure we know where 4 is at all times. We got to make sure we account for him. If that's how you start your offensive meeting, and defensively it's like, hey, we're going to make sure they have no idea where 4 is and what he's doing at all times, makes playing offense kind of hard. And while obviously Philly did not have a bad day offensively yesterday, I think it's worth pointing out the challenge that Frankie Luvu presents opposing offenses, and he certainly fulfilled his role yesterday.
Number 10.
And last but not least, the field position game yesterday. The Commanders, again, were fantastic, and Luke McCaffrey was awesome returning kicks. So that is something to look forward to continuously. I think they can also get him the ball more on screens. He had a 13-yard gain yesterday in a big spot. Hell of a block on that play by Zacchaeus, by the way. Just planted his dude. But in the kick return game, to just consistently have good field position, and especially in big spots. They start that last drive at the 43-yard line because Luke has a really nice return and Philly commits a really dumb penalty by leaving early on the kickoff. So the number of times that Luke won the field position battle yesterday was definitely a big impact in the game, and he deserves a lot of credit and a shout-out for that.